Name an episode of Friends that is as iconic as the one with the embryos. Okay, so there might be a couple that are as iconic, but I would argue that this is one of the best loved episodes. It's the 12th episode of the 4th season. It's directed by Kevin Bright, and for context, it has 9.4 out of 10 on IMDb across 9.6 thousand reviews and ratings, which is pretty incredible. And of course, there will be spoilers, big spoilers from now, as I talk about what happens in this episode and mention some personal highlights. I don't have too many extensive thoughts because there's not a lot of variety in what happens, but that absolutely does not matter because it is still amazing. And it starts off with a lot of noise because the chick is, well, causing a lot of noise, and Monica and Rachel get up early in the morning and they try to establish where this noise comes from, and then this actually becomes relevant, and that noise basically triggers the ultimate bet, but we'll get to that in a moment. Most of my thoughts center around the bet and the apartment game, so I'll talk about that in a second, but first we need to address Phoebe. Phoebe, Alice and Frank are down at the clinic. They're about to put their embryos into Phoebe's uterus, and we find out that this is the only shot they have. It's costing $16,000. It's all of their savings, and instantly Phoebe feels the pressure. And I feel like this is something that's really eye-opening because I've read and heard of a lot of stories of people using surrogates, and obviously they're worried that it won't work, but I've never really considered how the surrogate might feel. And this is a really great perspective we get with Phoebe also feeling that anxiety and really hoping that this works. And we have this really adorable moment where she's talking to the little petri dish, and it's very sweet. And as I said, I really feel like we get a good sense of how anxious she is for this and how much she really wants this to work for Frank and Alice. It's really lovely. She then goes home. She lies upside down. We get the brilliant song, Are You In There, Little Fetus, which I really love. And then I will come back to what happens with that part of the narrative because it ties into what happens with the apartment game. So, the apartment game. Joey and Chandler are suggesting that they know more about Monica and Rachel than Monica and Rachel know about Joey and Chandler. And they kind of prove this by guessing everything that's in the shopping bag. And they decide to play a game with proper questions, not trivial things like what was purchased at the store, but actual meaningful questions about each other and their personal lives. And Ross hosts the game, and I feel like it's something I don't need to describe too much. As I said, it's easily one of the most iconic Friends episodes. The game itself is, in my opinion, one of the most iconic scenes, but it's set up brilliantly. We get the game board, they're sitting on the sofa side by side. It is so well written. The pacing is amazing. The performances from everybody involved are fantastic. And I also love the fact that this is another episode where every character has an important role to play. Obviously, Phoebe's story is slightly separate, but everybody gets a significant amount of screen time, which I absolutely love. And then we get a whole string of questions. And I feel like I speak on behalf of most Friends fans when I say if I asked you any of the questions in this, you'd get it correct instantly because they're so memorable, they're so effective. The delivery of the answers are wonderful. And again, with the performances and making those memorable, it's just really brilliant. One of my favourites, Miss Chandler Bong, absolutely love it. And then they decide to make things more interesting. Monica and Rachel suggest that they play again. They end up having quick fire rounds. And if they win, Chandler and Joey have to give up the birds, which they're not pleased about, but they say, okay, but if we win, you give up the apartment, and Chandler and Joey will get Monica and Rachel's apartment. And they have the quick fire rounds, and one of the best moments with some great performances is when the timer ends. Monica and Rachel could not guess Chandler's job. Perfect question for this. And Monica screams, Chandler and Joey jump up with excitement, and it's just beautifully executed. So well done. And Rachel refuses to move, and it made me wonder what I would do in that situation. I think, first of all, I just wouldn't make that bet. But let's say I had. It feels like a bit extreme. But as Monica pointed out, if Joey and Chandler had won, they'd probably have made them stick to it and get rid of the birds. So it's a really difficult situation to be in. And if you know how you would react in this situation, then I'd love to know what you think. But I genuinely don't know. I don't know what's the right or wrong thing to do here. But they do ultimately end up packing up the apartment, which is not a pretty sight. It's unpleasant to see the kitchen being bare and not being inhabited with all of their things, because I don't want them to swap apartments. Mostly because I don't like change. But that being said, at the very, very end, where we get to see them in their respective apartments, it is really exciting, particularly when we get the yellow sofa in front of the big window. I thought that looked brilliant, really thoroughly enjoyed it. The moment where Chandler and Joey come riding in on Pat the dog, it's fabulous. So there are so many amazing things about that part of the episode. We then, of course, have the bit with Phoebe. And as I was saying, we do get a pretty great moment. And I'm surprised, I guess pleasantly surprised, that they decided to reveal that Phoebe was pregnant at the end of this episode. It's absolutely something they could have kept for a couple more episodes to keep up the suspense. I'm not saying they should have done. I'm just saying that I'm surprised that they didn't do that. And actually, I always admire it when people don't drag out storylines for longer than they need to. And revealing it at the end of this was actually quite nice. And the moment when Phoebe revealed this was lovely, because everybody's arguing about the apartments and they're bickering and it's loud, and then Phoebe comes out brandishing the pea stick and says that they're going to have a baby, and it's delightful. It's really lovely. So absolutely a fantastic episode, without a doubt. One of the most iconic, with so many great moments. It's wonderfully written, very, very funny, high intensity, and then of course we have a lot of emotion with Phoebe. And it's just brilliant. I've also just checked on IMDb to see where this ranked in terms of ratings, and this is the third top. I will tell you now which the second and first top ones were. Maybe you want to try and have a guess before I reveal. And I don't think I would have guessed one of these, but one of them I would have done. So I will now reveal the top two based on IMDb at the time of recording this. The second top rated, ranking just one above the one with the embryos, is the last one. Now, to be honest, I don't watch that episode. I will watch it again when I'm discussing it, but I hate it. It's emotional. It's beautifully done. It's fantastic, but I don't like watching it. But that's the second top, and the number one episode is not a bad episode, but as I said, it's not one that I would have rated the best of the best, and it's the one where everybody finds out. So that's quite interesting. I personally rate the one with the embryos much higher than that one, but keen to know what you think of that, if you have any thoughts on where they rank, or indeed if you know what your number one episode would be. I personally don't. But nevertheless, this is a brilliant episode. The one with the embryos is, all things considered, a pretty perfect episode of Friends.